Alright, good afternoon, everybody. This is Limoto Tomato back at it again with another weird talk show, episode 6. So, just to get down to the chase of it all, this is basically going to be almost a weird follow up to the two-parter, which was the Terminator franchise, the Terminator saga, as it was. You know, Terminator 1 all the way up to Terminator Dark Fate. But now we have a different franchise. We got a whole new ballpark of movies to talk about. And this time, we're going outer space. Screw that time traveling, hopping, machine killing, John Connor-esh bullshit. We're going in to the Aliens franchise. Now, I should have a bit of a warning for this video. There's probably going to be a lot of referencing from my older videos of the Terminator franchise, only because it's like, there's a lot of massive comparisons I want to make to these movies, just as it did Terminator, so you're going to be catching that quite a bit throughout this video, but I'm gonna try to refrain that from as much as possible. So anyway, now, the reason why I wanted to get into Alien was simple, because the Terminator truthfully got me into the whole, classic sci-fi genre of Hollywood. And of course, as well, there was a lot of other movies I needed to watch as well at that time, so it's like, I was also watching the first two Predator films, and I was also watching some John Carpenter films, even though not that much entirely. I was mostly watching Escape from New York and LA, which, by the way, I do plan to make videos about those movies as well someday. Someday, I should say. But I don't think none of those were as impactful as watching Alien. And Aliens, but not Alien 3. Not exactly. But anyway, so I guess to jump right into it, let's talk about where it all started. All the way back in like 1979, 1980, whatever. So here we have with Scott Ridley. I'm trying to remember the director's name. Scott Ridley. His first movie, Alien. Not his first movie. He made some other movies, I believe, before that. But like his fame, basically his rise to fame. Now, let me be honest. I like Terminator 1 because of the action and how it sets everything up. Alien does that, it sets everything up great, but there is more I like about this film as an introductory compared to Terminator 1. Where do I start with this film? I just love the theme of it. I love the theme of it overall. Yeah, space theme these days is kind of overrated, it's kind of overused, but in this time, it feels, even with the limitations of, 3D and CG, I didn't even need that much. I don't even think it used that much 3D. It just needed those special effects, it just needed that extra blood, it just needed the costumes and mocaps and all that, and it's just like, it was great. Probably not even mocaps, it was just straight up costumes. Aliens was basically using what Godzilla was using down in Japan years ago. Jokes aside. Now, I like the setup of this film because it gets this feeling that this is what we're gonna get for a whole franchise. We are gonna be out in outer space. We're not gonna be stuck on a planet. We're not gonna be stuck in some area. No, we are stuck in the middle of space. And that's what I like, honestly. We get to explore this universe. We get to explore what this strange mystery is like. It is just exploring the unexpected. And this movie sets it up great. It sets it up nice, simply, but great. And then going into that as well is just... Let me be honest. I don't exactly have anything memorable outside of the theme of this movie, but also characters as well. I think we all know what I would be talking about. I'd be talking about Lieutenant Ripley herself, which I didn't exactly expect her to be in the role that she was. Like, I thought she was just gonna be like, a developed character, straight up, just like, oh yeah, just I'm on a ship and I get to learn how to defend. No, she is just a hard stone badass. Even without, her appearance alone is already kind of like a voice of authority. It's a sign of authority just in her character alone, and I like that. I like how it's just like, she does not want to play around. She does not want to know what these life forms are like, even though she knows that it endangers her crew. That's all she knows. And it already has endangered her crew. Because a facehugger already got on one of her crewmates when, finding a distress beacon on an unknown planet. She's this voice of authority when nobody else wants to step up to it. She is that step-up leader when there's nobody left. And I quite like that, frankly. I really like that. And I really love her rise to action in the finale, where it's just like, you know, she literally has no other choice but to escape on her own with the cat, which I'm gonna get into that cat soon. Where it's just like, she knows the only way to destroy this alien, this monster, is to blow up the entire Nostromo space station. And that was a hard sacrifice, because that was leaving behind all of her friends who were bound to basically, you know, give birth to more aliens, and then also, of course, you know, losing millions of dollars worth, which, by the way, that's gonna get talked about in Aliens too, but like, that sacrifice alone that she had to make, she knew it was for the greater good, to protect Earth, but just the fact that she had to leave everybody behind, except the cat. But you know what, I need to get into that cat right now. I think Jonesy the cat was the absolute villain of this film. It was not the alien, it was Jonesy. Jonesy was the one that got everybody killed, quite frankly. I wanna throw that out there. Not as, like, canonical or anything, but just as a theory, that cat got everybody killed. That cat was the one that tricked them into that distress beacon, and was even the reason why that cat tricked Ash into bringing the facehugger onto the Nostromo. I'm just saying. That cat was evil. Absolutely goddamn evil. And I'm so glad we don't get to see it after, like, the first 18 minutes of Aliens 2. Wow, it's already been 6 minutes, and I already want to talk about Aliens 2, but we still got a bit of Alien 1 to talk about. Anyway. So yeah. Now, outside of those, I don't have any other memorable characters. Ash, as a plot twist, I did not expect. I was actually grossed out at his scene where he's just like, you know, he was like he was just like exploding from the inside, and just found out he wasn't actually a human being, but he was an android. He was a goddamn android masquerading as a goddamn human. That was scary as shit, honestly. And then it was just so creepy, just like, you know, his head talking to the last remnants of the crew. And it's like, God damn. And that's also a very good subtle hint of what we get later on in this franchise as well. It's just like, you know, the corporation that basically the Nostromo crew, Ripley and her crew were working for, they were not going to, like, you know, let any opportunities for cash and profit go out the window. They were not going to let it happen. And so that's why they brought Ash, and that's why even, like, the motherboard that they had on board the ship was just like, oh yeah, we're not sending you help, and we're not going to send you anything of, like, hints or tips on, like, how to, like, survive and all that. No, because they wanted this thing. They wanted this alien no matter what, even though they didn't know what it was. Ash just knew, hey, the company wants this, so you know what? They're gonna make the discovery and the profit of their lifetimes. I also want to talk about the finale very quickly as well, where it's just like, I liked how it was just a change up from Terminator 1, where it's just like, it wasn't Ripley exactly fighting the alien, it was more of just evading the alien, trying to get off the ship as soon as possible, with trying to kill it at the same time. Even though she knew all her friends were dead meat, she could at least get off that ship. She could at least kill that thing with the explosion. But also, let me be honest, that explosion could have probably blinded me if I wasn't exactly prepared for it, and if my eyes weren't as shit as they were. Like, that explosion, holy crap. For even like a movie that early in the days, that's a huge ass explosion. That makes the Death Star looks like playground work from episode 4. And then there's the final confrontation between Ripley and the Xenomorph, which just ends up, I don't even know how that alien, again, Jonesy, it was Jonesy that brought that alien to the ship. It did, to the escape ship. Let me tell you, Jonesy is an evil ass cat. But again, I just like how Ripley, it's just like, you know, she's freaked out, but then she immediately, like, she believes she has a chance to actually finish the fight. She actually has a way to kill this thing. And it was smart, honestly. She made a smart play. Also, following alongside probably one of the worst mocaps, just the alien just free-falling into space. Like, yeah! It was so funny, honestly. It was so funny. But anyway. So now, I don't have much to say. Like, this is probably going to be a much shorter review slash thoughts about the franchise, about the original trilogy compared to Terminator 1 through 3, because it's like, there's nothing as memorable compared to like the more subtler things. But I haven't even gotten to the alien yet. Let me talk about the alien. This is by far my favorite interpretation. Out of the 3 movies, this is by far my favorite interpretation. Why? Because even though there is no consistency on how fast an alien is born out of a chest of a human, it's still the idea that they were able to do this with a goddamn costume fitting a human in it. This is some Godzilla level types of like costume props and shit. And it still made it the most threatening thing about this movie. Outside of all of like the company BS and just like, you know, trying to survive in the dark and all that stuff, it's like this alien was a threat. This was such a threat, and nobody knew how to deal with it. Not even Ripley, not even Ash, not even the motherboard herself, not even Jonesy. Like, this alien was an absolute threat, and I liked that. I liked how this was basically a crew that did not know what to do. They were just surviving off what they could against an organic being that they have never seen or met before. They've never witnessed anything like that, and it's picking them off one by one. And that also makes it a pretty good horror movie as it is. Like, that's actually pretty good. And there's even some lore to it, there's some mystery to it that I feel like is never explained later on. Like, okay, so the scene where Ripley leaves Jonesy behind during the detonation to go to try to like stop the detonation, she leaves Jonesy there in his kennel, and the alien just comes down and just like look Jonesy in the eyes, and it like tilts his head like, huh? And then like the next scene later where Ripley like regroups with Jonesy is perfectly fine. Like he's not touched or anything by the alien. So that leaves the idea like not even the cage was broken or anything. So it's like, do felines and aliens have something in common? Because we see in later films like Alien 3 where it's just like, no, aliens do not give a shit. They will burst out of dogs or cattle. But cats, maybe they're related to cats in some way. Maybe that's a thing by the director, which would be super cool. But again, it just leads into so much mystery about who the alien is. What do the aliens do exactly? How do they connect with the rest of the universe? It's stuff that I'd be very interested to see more often than not, which I hope to see in the later trilogy, but I'm not keeping hopes up. And unfortunately, that we don't truthfully see in the next 2 films. But anyway, no, overall, Alien 1, I like it far more as a setup movie compared to Terminator 1. Terminator 1 is great because it gives us Arnold Schwarzenegger schlong, and it gives us Sarah Connor, and Kyle Reese was pretty cool, and it gives us the best car chase scenes that no other movie had yet to come up better with. But Alien 1, in terms of like subtle hints and just like not a big use of action and more horror sense of horror survival, it makes this movie almost one of a kind. Don't you think? Don't you think that, considering so many movies have tried to rip off this single movie? Nah. That's ridiculous. Everybody knows that Aliens is the superior movie. Everybody wants to be that bomber sequel, or even try to be on that level of equal power as Aliens, right? I don't believe so. I think Alien as its own, the first movie, holds its own pretty damn well, both in terms of like acting and story, characters, and even just downright the alien himself. It is a menace. An absolute menace, and I love it. And again, this comes from the idea that I gave these movies subsequent watches. Alien 1, I didn't truthfully like until my second watch, and that's when I was like, so satisfying. It's that same satisfaction as I got replaying Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty a second time and understanding what the game was all about, what the story was all about. And I'm like, oh, that's that same feeling with Alien. And it's so satisfying. And I would say it's by far maybe my favorite Alien film right now. But again, it is tied, of course, with its sequel counterpart, Aliens, which we can get into right now. So, Aliens 2, as we all know, directed by the legend himself, James Cameron, Terminator, blah 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 blah. Getting straight into it, I agree. I really, really like Aliens, but there is something about it that makes me feel like there's something that's missing that I missed from Alien 1. Alien 1 I feel like was great because it was a horror survival and it was not standing a chance. But what... Yes, like, I'm sorry, I'm losing my thoughts here because I'm just trying to rethink all this stuff. Because I have not watched these movies in a couple weeks, but... Alien 2 basically takes all the concepts that 1 did and make it and expand upon it. Some stuff better and left some stuff on the sideway, kind of left it down the road. Like the idea of like the xenomorph like connecting with other creatures, with other life forms, and even like the motherboard, and even getting to actually know the company a bit more. Well, actually no, that's a lie. They actually get to talk about the company quite a bit. But again, James Cameron expanded upon the Alien universe with just a second movie. They expanded upon the idea of, you know, an actual fighting force for Earth, aka the Colonial Marines, aka the force that basically inspired a multitude of so many other video games and movies about Space Marines. Absolutely, you can't deny that. And then also, you know, continuing Ripley's story into like hunting aliens, but also trying to stay away from them, and also just trying to give humanity a fighting chance. Like, this movie is brilliant on building on all those first steps that Ridley Scott did in his first movie. James Cameron just took those ideas and expanded upon it, in his own scope, of course, but still, it was genius. It was absolutely genius. Now, let me be honest about one thing though, honestly. As much as I do like the Colonial Marines, I quite like the cast. I quite did. After my second watch, I appreciated them individually more and more. But in terms of like how they're shown off, I was kind of expecting they'd be like the star of the show, the star of the whole movie compared to Ripley. But no, after like the first like 40-50 minutes, they're gone. They're dead. Most of them are dead, and the remnants of the Marines are kind of just like fending for themselves, with Ripley and Newt, and also the commanding officer. And what's that one asshole's name? I don't remember that one asshole's name, but we're gonna call him Charlie. Let's call him Charlie for now, because Charlie is an asshole name. Now, I'll be honest, it was the Colonial Marines movie, like the moment they came on board, the moment we get to meet them. That was their movie for that time. Ripley was on the side, trying to be like a spectator / like, you know, support kind of person. But then the moment they are all under attack by just hordes of aliens, and then they have to fall back with like maybe 3 or 4 Marines left, then it's back to Ripley. It's back to Ripley, and that's quite smart as well. Also, I have not talked about Newt. Newt, honestly, Newt is a good character. I liked her character, quite frankly. I loved her development in this movie. It's like, it's so heartwarming and so sad equally. And it's just at the same time, it's just like, you know, and yet, granted, I have not watched a special edition, which, from what I've heard, does basically, like, give a little bit more backstory to Newt, like how her home planet, how the colony was under attack by xenomorphs and all that. Granted, it was the same planet that also gave the distress beacon to the Nostromo 50 years ago, so, again, expanding on the story. Why not set up a colony on the same planet that literal hundreds of facehuggers ready to give birth to aliens? Why not? Why not, honestly? Why not make a stupid move like that? Anyway, no, Newt, honestly, for even like base movie-wise, I quite liked her. She was really an interesting character. She really got to grow on to me as well, especially when compared to like the rest of the Colonial Marines and the other assholes and Ripley herself. Like she stood above, like she stood on her own, and I quite liked that. I quite did. Now, I guess even for Colonel Hicks, no, not Colonel Hicks, Lieutenant Hicks. Hicks was actually pretty cool as well, and if none of you probably know who that is, aka Kyle Reese, but a Colonial Marine, not fighting Terminators in the future, but fighting aliens. I liked his character, but between Hicks and Kyle, they're both equally good, but I think Hicks just gets to be that little bit more memorable, even though it didn't take me till my second watch I'm realizing, holy shit, Kyle Reese was in an Alien movie. It took me my second watch to realize that, holy shit. And also, like, even the other characters, the guy who's like, game over, man, it's game over. Like, I didn't like his character, but then it's just like up until like his death. You know, I'll give him credit. He was a cool character. Ah, my god. There's so much to talk about this movie. There's so much more I want to talk about this movie, but I think before I get into like a bit of a finale-esque kind of thing, I will admit there's some things I feel like this movie I did not like compared to Alien 1. For one, I appreciate the expansion of this universe, absolutely do, given us the fact that there are way more aliens out there, that there have been hundreds of growing, and that showed obviously in the first movie that these aliens were waiting to be born. And also the expansion of the Colonial Marines, being able to, like, you know, get to grow strong, that, like, you know, basically bulked up the military of Earth. And then there's just the idea that they were capable of fighting the aliens. But that's where I'm kind of on the line with. That's where I'm kind of griped with, where it's just like, the first movie shows these aliens, this xenomorph, like, almost as an invincible kind of being. Like, nothing could really harm it. Like, there's nobody out there that is capable of withstanding to overwhelm it. Everybody is overwhelmed by this creature. And it even is, and the alien is still overwhelming in this movie as well, but it's like, the idea that simple, like, you know, 10mm or 40mm bullets, and even, like, even grenades and flashbangs and all that, like, sure, it shows, like, they're not as durable, but at the same time, strength in numbers is good, but at the same time, when you're showing off that these can be killed, by normal means of, like, rifles and explosions, it kind of loses its credit. The alien kind of loses some of its credit. Like, say, like, if an alien showed up on the real world and somebody had a double-barrel shotgun, put that kill an alien, let alone downright wound it badly, to the point of death. I would say so. But besides that, no, that's my only gripe with this film. It's like, it shows the alien, yes, it's still threatening, but I just think, just the idea that there's so many of them that are kind of like tissue paper that can get destroyed easily, yeah, kind of not for me. Then again, normal pistol rounds weren't really that effective against them. Like, you had to, like, unload an entire clip into them, and then they died. But it's like, still, that's a waste. That's a waste of a clip. Also, the mother xenomorph. The queen alien? Yeah, her. I did not like her. I did not like the queen alien. Design standpoint-wise, I liked her, but in terms of, like, effectiveness, She was only that slight step up compared to just a regular alien, and I did not like it. I don't know. She's threatening. She's an absolute threat. Oh, tell me about it. But I don't... In terms of effectiveness, in terms of threateningness, it feels like she would be able to kill me, but at the same time, I don't think she would. Because considering she basically has to lay eggs all the time to continue with the facehuggers, and then spot out more creatures, and then, more aliens. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle, but I just don't believe, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of threatening. Yeah, she had her moment, but it's like, But again, ripping apart Bishop like that was pretty cool. Oh, I forgot about Bishop! Yeah. I need to talk about Bishop for a bit. I think in terms between both Ash and Bishop, there's a clear distinction between them, but Bishop does not get as much time compared as Ash. Because we all kind of would assume first watch, like, oh yeah, Bishop, he's an AI, Ripley's not gonna trust him because because the last AI got pretty much most of her crew killed. But Bishop, I will admit, did not get that development as he deserved. And I feel like it was kind of forced in the first half. Like, my first watch of it, I kind of didn't care for Bishop. I'm like, oh shit, he got ripped in half. Even though he tried helping Ripley. Oh. Second time watch, yeah. It was a lot more understandable. In a point, but... No, I just feel like he just did not get that much development in terms of Ash. But still made him a, I guess, memorable character? No, not really. I still prefer Ash. I still do. Ash was a far better AI because it's like, he was able to hide that fact. He was able to hide the fact that he was an AI, even though he was acting as a human the entire time. Bishop, yeah, he yeah, I did, but then immediately, like, in the first 20 minutes, it's already revealed, oh yeah, an android is gonna be with us. Okay. And I just realized I've been throwing around artificial intelligence, so ignore all those and consider those as androids. Android, cyborgs, whatever you want to call it. It's androids, definitely. Anyway. Yeah, no, Bishop, he played his role, but again, he just did not get that time compared to Ash, which I feel like is a little disappointing, especially considering how he was used in Alien 3. Anyway. Anything else I could talk about otherwise? Again, I have not watched a special edition of this film. I have not. I want to, but at the same time, I think just base movie alone, it's great. Absolutely great film. There's a clear distinction between this film and basically between the two other movies before and after it. It is the most action-packed. It's the most... What's another word? What's another word, honestly? Character-driven? Character-driven, definitely. And even threatening, in a sense, because there are multiple aliens. But again, I feel like it's just more of a threat when there's a single alien and when people do not realize it. Like, the Colonial... Like, granted, nobody knew how to deal with an alien except for Ripley, up until all the Colonial Marines got their shit rocked. And then it's just like, you know, they had to follow her lead for it. And again, it's just like, it's the most distinct out of the three movies because it is the most action jam-packed. It is by far, and also most character-driven as well, because Alien 1, I will say, was mostly driven by the Xenomorph himself, by that development. By the time it's like, you know, the second of the half the movie showed around, everybody started dying because of the Xenomorph. And it was basically driven by that, and also Ripley's desire to basically kill this thing with the rest of her crew, but at the same time trying to make sure Earth would not be affected by it at all. Alien 2 was distinct by the fact it's just, you know, by the tagline itself, as you could see on the screen, this time it's war. Like, it's an actual war in a sense, because it's like, you know, all these aliens could start popping up on Earth, were it not if they were all, like, taken out by Ripley. It's also the idea of giving us this weird bonding story in between this warfare between man and alien. It all works out. It all really works out. Again, I do prefer Alien 1 over Aliens, only for the simple reason that the Xenomorphs, while very threatening and very dangerous, again, tissue paper-esque. Also, the Mother Xenomorph, After first watch, I kinda didn't care, quite frankly. Also, I want to mention two other things as well. So, there's a shot in the movie. There's a single shot in Aliens where it's like, I feel like that is the definitive moment for the entire movie. There's like one scene that caught my eye the absolute most. And if I have it, I'm gonna show it. And it is this scene. It is just this scene of after Ripley, you know, saves Newt from the alien hive, and then like the both of them are trying to get out of there before like the detonation starts, and it's like, you know, Ripley is staring down what is essentially the Mother Xenomorph, the mother alien, and like the shot of it alone, like holding on to Newt's hand and also wielding a duct-taped assault rifle and flamethrower together, that is so badass. That is like probably one of the most kick-ass scenes. Like, Terminator 1 I mentioned had the badass scene of like actually showing the Terminator himself. Like, I thought that was absolutely cool. But but just Ripley standing there, just staring down the face of death. Oh man. So good. So good. I would say that's the money shot for this movie. That's the money shot right there. I also got another image. Hold on, let me see what this one is. What is this one? Where is it? Oh yeah, this was actually, I failed to mention this, but I wanted to show this scene off as well from Alien 1. We're gonna backtrack for a little bit, but this is what I was mentioning, like, in the near end, where after Ripley left Jonesy behind to stop the self-destruction of the Nostromo, like, the Xenomorph was just right around the corner, and Ripley just ran for her life with the flamethrower and left Jonesy behind, and the Xenomorph is, like, tilting his head, crouched down, looking at the cat. And he's just like, what's this? And then it's like, again, next scene that Ripley, like, saves Jonesy, or even, like, picks him back up, Jonesy's safe. Like, the pet carrier was not damaged or anything. Jonesy didn't look hurt or anything. He didn't look shocked or anything. Jonesy was just, like, absolutely chill about it. He was absolutely chill looking straight in the face of this alien. And I think that was quite funny, honestly. I think that was, like, the funny moment of this film, but also, like, again, leads into some interesting questions that I feel like was probably never answered again for the rest of the franchise that I know of right now. So, but yeah, backtracking over, going back to Aliens. Again, this is the money shot right here. This is absolutely the money shot for the film, and I love it. I love this scene so much. I love it so much because it's like, there's no music. There's only the cold wind of the factory going around Ripley as she's like sweating herself off. She's an absolute mess, yet she's still striving on. She's fighting on with her duct tape rifle and flamethrower, which is absolutely a cool pairing. And then also Newt by her side, protecting her at all costs while also fending off against aliens. Like, this movie has a lot of good money shots and a lot of good one-liners that are memorable today, but nothing like this. Nothing like this scene alone, like, screams money shot for a film. Absolutely great. So that's one of the two things I wanted to touch on. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and this should be obvious for anybody, but I feel like for everything that this movie showed, the colonial marines, the fighting chance, the self-destruction of an entire, like, you know, colony / like alien race, and then also a badass hero / heroine. I feel like this movie totally inspired Halo Combat Evolved. Not the franchise, but just Combat Evolved in itself. Like, think about it this way. Ripley is the Master Chief, the Colonial Marines are basically the UNSC, the Xenomorphs are the Alien Covenant, or even the elites themselves. And, you know, it's just this fighting chance against desperate measures against this alien force, even though Combat Evolved goes the extra step of showing off, like, you know, the ancient forerunners and the ancient danger, which is the Flood, which I would actually say, no, I would think the Flood is way more of the Xenomorphs themselves, because somebody just had to wake up the Xenomorphs, as did the Covenant had to wake up, you know, the Flood on the Halo ring. And then, of course, Master Chief had to fight it off while also being the last survivor. But while at the same time with, you know, an AI friend, which basically, you know, kind of Ripley had with Newt, even though she wasn't an AI, she was a full-blown little girl human. But again, I just feel like Combat Evolved was heavily so goddamn inspired by Aliens. Not the first movie, but the second film by far. There's so much similarities. It's almost uncanny. It is uncanny. It's ridiculous how many similarities I found between this film and my knowledge of Combat Evolved as a game, as a story. Down from the weapons up until, like, the one-liners and even how, like, Marines acted and how the Flood acted and the Xenomorphs acted, just... It's great. It's honestly super cool. Super cool comparing to, like, these kind of movies, because I can't compare a game to Terminator in terms of story-wise, in terms of, like, similarities, because there's too much like that. I'd be saying, like, hey, this game has, like, a cyborg that looks like the Terminator, but that's too easy. Aliens and Halo go hand in hand because they feel similar to one another in terms of, like, you know, character-driven and action-driven, and even finale-driven for that matter as well. Outside of Aliens' other finale as well. And that's what I like about it. That's why I like Aliens a lot, because this is the movie that I believe truly inspired Halo. Absolutely. And if somebody at Bungie says, no way, we did not get inspired by Aliens, you're a liar. And I think that's a good note to end off with Aliens, because now we get into Alien 3. Oh boy. Now, disclaimer. I am not going to be trashing on this movie as much as I did with Terminator 3. Terminator 3 was an absolute garbage fest. It was a shit fest. But Alien 3 was bad, but it was okay. Not painfully okay, not painfully decent, but it was okay. It was an okay Alien movie, and an okay movie as is. So, where do I start with this film? Well, I guess we could start with the beginning itself, and I think this is where the bulk of my video is going to come from. Alien 3 basically starts off immediately after Alien 2, or just Aliens, and it just shows off, like, you know, Ripley and the last remaining members of the, you know, Colonial Marines group, you know, like Bishop being torn in half, and Newt and Lieutenant Hicks getting severely wounded, and all of them in cryo sleep, and then they all like crash land on this planet, on this unknown planet. I can't even tell you what the planet's name was at this point because it was kind of that forgettable. Well, and then it's like we meet all these like different men that are prisoners there. And they find Ripley. Ripley is like found alive and like taken to the infirmary to recover. Meanwhile, everybody else is dead. Newt died. Hicks died. Bishop was torn to pieces by the crash landing. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's not a way to start off a third movie immediately after a second film. Not quite. Not quite the ballpark you'd want to be landing on. Okay, and also, I need to make another disclaimer as well. I'm going to be making comparisons between both Alien 3 and the special edition, the director's cut of it. Even though there's not much real difference about it, outside of like few scenes that don't change the movie by any means. But again, some are more noticeable than others. Starting off, like, one of those more notable scenes was definitely, like, you know, the xenomorph coming into the station. And, you know, where it just had to be born into? Had to be born into a dog. Because why not? Because just like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, somebody just had to hate dogs and had to have a facehugger just implant babies into a dog and just, like, have to kill it on the spot. Meanwhile, a funeral procession is going on for Ripley's crew, as they're all being thrown away, as their bodies are getting dumped into lava. Which, sad scene as it was, and also very disturbing to watch, because between the dog scene and, you know, the first facehugger scene from Alien 1, this one was by far more disturbing because it was a dog and he was just whimpering for his life. And nobody was there. Nobody was there. And then if you've watched the director's edition, you found out it was actually a dead cattle or oxen and just left behind. And it's just like, it explodes. But again, both are very disturbing nonetheless. So it does lead into the idea that yes, other life forms can be used to like reproduce aliens. Absolutely. And I think that was a cool expansion upon it. Also, if you all probably haven't noticed, I haven't mentioned James Cameron because I can't remember who the director of this film was. It was somebody noticeable, it was somebody recognizable, but I can't tell you his name right on the spot, and I don't want to look it up, otherwise my laptop is gonna crash. Like, that's the first noticeable scene. Also, the introduction was not as noticeable, like, in terms of, like, major, like, Alien 3 started off with just like, oh, you know, just the whole, like, prisoner stuff. All the prisoner guys just, like, showed up, they, like, rescued Ripley, they basically just found out that everybody else died. In the opening of the director's edition, we basically have the main guy's name? Hold on. I need to look this guy up. I'll be quickly right back so I can look at this guy. Okay, let's have a look here, because again, there's not as many like, I can't tell you anybody's name except Ripley, and Newt, and Hicks, and Bishop. Like, nobody else comes to mind. Like, none of the other prisoners come to mind. So let's have a look here. Like, who's the guy? Who's the main guy? No. Where are you? Clemens. Yes, Clemens. You know, basically, the medical officer turned love interest of Ripley, basically fraternizing with a prisoner. Yes, that's a line actually from the movie. Ugh. Yeah, they basically give, like, everybody's name that was, like, noticeable in this. Oh, I should mention one other guy. Dylan? Yes, Dylan. Basically the preacher, like the churchman of the prison. He was probably the more recognizable, like, he was more noteworthy than Clemens, in my opinion. Only because of his, like, his fighting speech at the end, where it's just like, God damn it, I'm not gonna die without a fight. Meanwhile, he has a fire axe behind him, and everybody else is just staring at this man like, are you crazy? Again, great speech. In fact, I could probably even go over it as well because, you know, practice. But, again, there's no exact memorable characters, which made Aliens 2, in my opinion, memorable because there were far more memorable characters than I remember than Alien 1. Like, you had Corporal Hicks / Lieutenant Hicks, I can't make the difference. You had Newt, you had basically the whole Colonial Marines cast. And while you probably couldn't remember and while nobody could probably remember individual names, they were all unique in their own ways in terms of character, even for what little screen time that they had. And even some of the other characters in between as well, like Asshole Charlie. But like in this movie, you have names like Golic and Morse and Andrews and Jude and Aaron and Frank and Ted. It's like, I can't even tell you the guy who was pretty much like stuck in the infirmary, like tied to himself because everybody thought he killed 2 of the prisoners when in fact it was an alien. I can't even tell you that guy's name. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you the chief officer of the prison. I can't even tell you his name because he became that forgettable halfway through the film. And same goes for the other guy that was like basically the last survivor of the prison. Before Ripley sacrificed herself to stop the xenomorph from being born. Also, just to go further, that thing was whole stupid. That thing was never explained, and I don't even know how they could ever explain it. How the hell a freaking facehugger got into her cryopod and just ended up impregnating her? Unless this was a scene that they wanted to be like, oh yeah, this actually came out of Aliens. Explain that, please. You just can't show us Ripley has an alien inside her without actually explaining it. Like, sure, this franchise is a mystery in terms of, like, how everything works still, even a third movie. Like, again, Aliens 2 made us, like, it helped us understand the human side, but we still don't know jack. We don't know everything specific jack shit about the xenomorphs, about the aliens. And, like, let's put it this way. Let's look back at the beginning. So, when it was found out, Corporal Hicks, you know what, if I'm gonna say Colonel, he deserves to be a Colonel at this point. Colonel Hicks basically died because, you know, he already faced a lot of injuries in the last film, and he basically died on impact of, you know, like, arriving on the planet, so he died immediately. Newt died not by a facehugger, but she died in her sleep, which also kind of fears the idea of cryogenic sleep, in my opinion, even though I still want to experience that. But it's the idea that Ripley was still worried that an alien was, like, going to form out of her body. But in fact, that never happened. And then there was Bishop, which that was impossible as it was. And then there was the idea, of course, that a facehugger got into the dog / cattle, depending on which version of the movie you watch, that, you know, gave us the main alien. But the movie does not go out of its way to, like, actually explain to us how there was an alien inside Ripley all along. Like, that makes no sense. And granted, I think it is good that they didn't explain it to us because, you know, shock value for what it's worth. But again, it makes no stupid sense. It makes no sense whatsoever why an alien would be inside Ripley. Why it would be inside our main heroine protagonist for 3 films now. The first film where she had to rise up to the action, the second film where she took a backseat for like 40 minutes and then bam, she was thrown back into the action. And now this movie where she's basically... straggler? A straggler, in a sense? Like, there's just nothing. And it's not like... I don't feel like her character goes through anything special in this movie either. There truthfully isn't, like... So... She loses her entire crew in the first film, and she gets to bear with that, and bear with the idea that there may have been an alien inside of her, even though those were all nightmares. The second film, you know, she gets to basically redeem herself by saving the people she cares about. She gets to save Hicks, she gets to save Newt, even Bishop, even though he nearly dies. It's like, you know, she gets a fighting chance. And then in this film, it basically just goes back to square one. It goes back to square one where it's just like, Ripley just loses everybody again. And I just don't see why we have to repeat this pattern. I don't know why. And again, the whole prison arc as it was, as like this introductory for all these like 20 or so men, has a good concept on paper, but in payoff of it, I don't know, again, there's no characters that truly come to mind except for Clemens and for Dylan, whatever his name was, not Andrews. Who was it? Oh, it was Dylan. I was right. Wow. Like, Clemens and Dylan are by far the most memorable characters because they actually had, like, the most characterization. And I think that's another problem I have with this movie as well. People are talking so quietly, and this is probably not going to pick up much. We're looking very, very quiet. It's not going to pick up my voice. Like, everybody is talking like that for, like, 70% of the movie, except for the near end when everybody has to basically step up and get their shit together to fight this alien. Like, everybody is talking like it's like they're in a library, like they're in a prison library. And I just, like, sometimes I'm like, can you speak up louder? Yes, but you can see, I was a drug dealer. I took drugs, but they turned into a doctor. Can you speak up louder? I have gripes with this movie. I have absolute gripes with this movie. But again, it's not in that same vein as Terminator 3, where Terminator 3 was absolute dog shit in almost every concept that it tried to take. They basically said, fuck Terminator 2, we're doing our own thing. We're doing basically best of both worlds, but we're fucking it up. Alien 3, I will say, is a worse version of Alien 1, and it's basically saying fuck Alien 2, but we're still gonna go on from it no matter what, so can you say it's slightly better than Terminator 3? Yes, you can. You can, but still, there's a lot you'd have to salvage to say this movie is even remotely good. It's okay. Now, I think I only have a few more things to thrash on this movie, outside of, like, the lack of interesting characters, and also, you know, bad character quality audio. Like, audio all around was dog shit. Ooh, there's one thing I noticed, which I don't know if anybody could tell me this, but are there audio issues in the special edition of Alien 3? Because I swear, sometimes it felt like there was air coming around people's mouths. Like there was something behind them. Like it was like an empty room. It was like a big empty room, and it was almost like echoing, and there was wind all around them. Or even like they were in like some weird workstation or something. Like, I feel like that audio was like straight up cut from the original, just patched onto it. Like, again, the audio was weird. I can't exactly explain it, but it just felt weird. Anyway, technical stuff aside. Oh god. Oh god. I just remember thinking about it. This is the first Alien film that they use CGI for. On top of still using the xenomorph costume that they basically used for, you know, the first two films, even though they had to make that much more for a second film. Like, I'd want to know how many alien costumes they had to make for Aliens. I'm just curious about that, actually. You know what? I want to see that, actually. I want to look that up. But quick sidetrack. Don't worry, this is the only sidetrack I will make for Aliens as I did with Alien 1, so hold on. How many alien costumes were made for Alien 2? I just want to know how much. Was that... Wait, what? That's not much, huh? Let me see here. Okay, yeah, it's not gonna give me the answer, but I'd just be curious to know if they had to use, like, multiple copies of the Xenomorph costume. That'd be very interesting. Okay, sidetrack over, going back to Alien 3. I don't want to go back now. The CGI is terrible. Absolutely terrible by far, like, holy shit. Like, this movie came out, like, what, 1990s something? And around the time before, like, Terminator 2 or something? When did this shit come out again? 1992. This came out exactly 1 year after Terminator 2. Exactly 1 year after. And yet the CGI holds up terrible compared to the T-1000 in Terminator 2. And it's not like the T-1000, like, CGI-wise, like, yeah, we've expanded upon that, but be honest, I feel more threatened fighting a T-1000 that could turn itself into liquid metal, and that's threatening as shit, and even, like, morph itself into other people. But a xenomorph that basically looks like they shoved a dog into an alien costume, which, by the way, there's a little fact that they tried to do that. They tried to make, like, a costume for a dog to run around for the finale. And it's just, like, the colors look... They added more green to it. I think that's my problem. The CGI makes the xenomorph look green, and I don't like that. Like, in terms of it, like, from what we know from the first two films, considering, like, they're both very dark, and like, anytime xenomorphs show up, they are mostly in the dark, or in, like, very dark lit areas. We mostly see that they're, like, this dark black kind of color. There's, like, no other color to them but just, like, darkness itself. Edginess, I know. But I still think it's just a nice representation, but in this movie, they really try to hit with this green, and it's like, no. Just does not work. It looks ugly. It doesn't look threatening. It looks like a bootleg. That's what it looks like. It looks like a bootleg alien. But funny enough, they still use the mocap. They still use the costume of, like, you know, the first two films. And it still looks great. The shots that costume is in, oh baby, it is satisfying to watch. Those are, like, the moments to actually be satisfied with. But everything else that it's involved with, like CGI-wise, or even just, like, it's away, like, hiding in the corner, like, yeah, I'm up here, like, no. Not really. Not exactly good. I'm trying to think. Should I just talk about the finale yet now? Yeah, I guess I can. I guess I should, because there's really nothing else. Because, again, my problem with this film is, like, the story kind of goes nowhere. The story just kind of wants to pick itself up as soon as the alien just fully grows. Like with Alien 1, sure, we had to wait, but we didn't have to wait that long. But in the meantime, we got to know these characters. We got to know, like, their daily lives, what they were doing, what they had plans for once they came home. Aliens was that idea where it's just like, you know, they were getting prepared. They were ready to go for this kind of combat, even though they truthfully didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They finally had a fighting chance, and they were ready to see how well that was going to pay off. With Alien 3, it's like, there's nothing really, because none of these characters are going anywhere. The only character that would be going is Ripley, because it's an all-man prison, and no woman has been around forever, and they hate that idea, so the chief guy is just like, hey, so, we're gonna contact Earth and make sure you get the fuck off our planet, because we don't want women on our planet, because it's very harassment. Again, just, the plot goes nowhere until the alien finally shows up, until the alien finally grows. And then once they finally realize, well, I guess we have to listen to this woman now. But I think, given it just a little side of pity, I do think the finale was kind of good. Actually. Like, the whole, like, run around the facility to, like, lure out the alien so it can get a bunch of hot lead dumped over its body so it could die. And just, like, it's just weird camera angles going on, like, there's, like, maybe 100 different camera angles throughout, like, that 20-minute sequence. I think that was quite good. I think for what it was worth, yeah, it still shows us the terrible CGI alien and has a lot of characters dying off for literally no purpose at all except for like, hey, lure them out. You're all test dummies. I still think it was good. And even the finale of just like actually getting the plot twist, like, that hot lead didn't kill the alien, but then did the water, which cracked open in its entire body and exploded into a million pieces. It was cool. I will admit. Also, Dylan's sacrifice. Oh man. Dylan's sacrifice was so cool, honestly. Again, Dylan was the coolest. He was absolutely the coolest of the entire bunch. Like, compared to him and Clemens and everybody else, he was all good. And I guess I want to quote him very quickly because, again, I think he had some of the best quotes in the entire franchise as it is. Like, not one-liner specifically, but like a whole-ass quote. We're all gonna die. The only question is when. This is a good place as any to take your first steps to heaven. The only question is how you want to check out. Do you want to go on your feet? Do you want to die fighting? That was probably wrong, but still. It's just that speech alone, it's super cool. Super cool ass speech from Dylan. And then of course we get the finale where it's just like, are we to believe this is actually the real Bishop? I certainly believe so because we got to see red blood. But again, we're kind of repeating both Alien 1 and Alien 2, or even just mostly Alien 2 at that point because it is Bishop. At the same time, we get to see the rest. We get to see mankind coming back and all that stuff, but the movie just ends kind of on a sour note, especially depending on which version you watch, because if it's original Alien 3, you do see the xenomorph popping out of Ripley's chest as she's falling into the lava, but she's just like holding on to it as they both die. And then in the special edition, they completely cut that scene out and just, we get to witness Ripley just fall into a lava pit. That's all. Nothing really to write home off of. And again, it's just... this movie just doesn't do much. It heavily so much relies on the alien when there's really nobody else there to do it. Ripley isn't really there when you think about it. Like, Ripley's there, but the only reason she's there because it's literally the only fighting chance anybody would have at this point, because she's the only person now in this whole universe that knows how to fight it, that knows how to outsmart one, to get around it. That even in the most bad of circumstances, in the most, worst of circumstances. And if that fact is gone, then, well, we're fucked. Again, I don't think this movie is as bad as Terminator 3. Terminator 3 is, a league of its own bad. Terrible, even. But Alien 3 is, it fails on so many marks. It's trying to... in a sense, it's trying to be Alien 1 while also trying to continue Alien 2. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work in any matter. It only works as a sequel because it just keeps going, but it also basically ends the trilogy as it is. And again, it's I did watch the special edition, and the special edition did not change anything whatsoever. Did not change anything of my opinions. I thought some scenes were a little cooler than the original, but even then, the original movie... yeah, that probably didn't even pick up at all, but that's just how quiet this movie is. It's it feels like you're in a library. and there's an alien chasing around, and you want to scream for your life, but you know you just can't. And I don't like that. I don't like that, honestly. Alien 1 and Alien 2 just had that perfect understanding of just like, scream for your life if you know you're gonna die. But the moment you scream for your life from Alien 3, it's like nobody talks. Nobody talks loud enough in the next, 20 minutes. Or even 10 minutes, for that matter. No matter what. So that's all I really got for Alien 3, unfortunately. I have no good notes, I have no good hopes, or potential, or even other bad notes to talk about, so... that's gonna basically wrap it up. That's gonna wrap up my entire thoughts about this trilogy. Final closing, what can I say, honestly, about the Alien franchise? This was, by far, almost more of a treat to watch compared to Terminator. Like, Terminator was great in terms of action and even some good characters, but Alien, I feel like, it hit a sweet spot for me that I just haven't experienced. Like, something I always refused to watch because I felt like Alien was overrated. Like, I felt like, oh, the movies aren't even that good. Quite frankly, they're really good. Alien 1 and Alien 2 are definitely masterclasses in terms of just giving that sci-fi horror the name that it deserves. And I can't even tell you other movies outside of maybe the first Terminator film, or even The Predator for that matter, or even The Thing, or any other sci-fi movies that came out around the time of Alien or even after, that come close to just giving it the glory that this name gives the genre's name for. If that makes sense. Alien 1 by far is still my favorite movie out of the entire trilogy, but it's, again, tied with Aliens because they are two distinct movies. One is about surviving, the other is about action and surviving. Alien 3 is just about surviving, and it does nothing special with it. Alien 1 has my favorite, atmosphere for an Alien film, and even has a very satisfying finale. Aliens has memorable characters, memorable scenes, great development of characters, great action, and most of all, just continuing the expansion of the universe, which, by the way, Alien 1 was a great introductory movie, while Aliens is basically that expansion, that continuation of growing the universe around us. And then Alien 3 is that weird finale that nobody deserved. Nobody deserved that film. Nobody on the production cast or anybody that watched this film, including myself or Sigourney Weaver or anybody, deserved. No. And like I said, I have yet, and I don't think I ever said this. I have not watched the later half of the Alien franchise. I have not yet, Resurrection, Prometheus, Alien Covenant. I have not watched those yet. I do plan though, too. But we'll see, because from what I've heard, they may be far more dumpster fires than I expect with, the Terminator modern trilogy. Which, as you all know, I have mixed feelings about the modern Terminator trilogy. So yeah, that is basically my thoughts about the Aliens original trilogy. Absolute great trilogy, and I do look forward to getting very, very disappointed. As expected at this point as a moviegoer. Anyway, thank you all for watching again. I greatly appreciate it. Look out for the next episode. That should be coming out hopefully in maybe a week or two. And yeah, again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later. Until then.